Hello there and good morning. Big business does not want good pay for HGV drivers, and what big business wants, big business usually gets. As per usual, please like, subscribe and comment below. And when subscribing, please do press that little bell, but also select the all option, or you won't get any notifications when I publish a new video. The fat cats are determined to do all they can to flatten the curve of the now increasing pay for HGV drivers. But according to Boris, the answer to the HGV driver crisis is to send them letters of love. So a long telegraphed crisis that has been developing since at least 2015 and probably for a lot longer is going to be solved by sending out 1 million love letters to HGV drivers. And we also hear that Boris is demanding that HGV drivers get a pay rise. Well, he can demand that, but I get the distinct impression that the big corporates would rather keep the status quo and ruin Christmas in order to force the government to open UK borders to cheaper foreign labour that undercuts UK wages. I mean, big companies having to pay a fair wage when they can instead push the government into a strategy for suppressing wages and keeping their profit margins high. What do you reckon? But that's what they've actually managed to do, because Boris has now agreed to let in 5,000 drivers as well as 5,500 poultry workers until Christmas. One assumes that's to make sure that Christmas is saved and not cancelled. On this, the Telegraph quotes one senior government source saying that this is restricted to the months until Christmas because we need to be paying these people more rather than just flooding the market with cheap labour. But as I said, I'm getting the distinct feeling that the big companies out there, especially the ones with Ramona bosses, are quite happy to trash Christmas or anything else come to that to try and get a permanent source of low-wage workers to keep their profit margins as high as possible. Seems like the fat cats have their own Scrooge view of Christmas past, present and future. And the last thing they want to see is a reduction in the astronomical pay differential between the shop floor and the boardroom, especially as comments allegedly made by BP head of retail Hannah Hofer that fuel would have to be rationed without more drivers were leaked. And suddenly we had forecourts full of idiots filling multiple jerry cans and embarrassing videos of dorks brawling amongst the pumps. Now, the Daily Mail is reporting that ministers are pointing at a former BBC senior exec, Rod Mackenzie, as the leaky one, as he's now running policy and public affairs for the Road Haulage Association. These unnamed ministers are claiming that Mackenzie selectively leaked some of Hofer's remarks. What wasn't leaked was that this current situation has been going on for weeks, and no one had noticed. Mackenzie says he wasn't at the meeting, but according to the Mail report, Mackenzie will have been aware of Ms Hofer's comments and had every incentive to weaponise them. The RHA leak every meeting they have with us. They have a rap sheet as long as their arm. Mackenzie is just a moaning Remainer, and he and the RHA are entirely responsible for this panic and chaos. We will deal with them when this is over. Now, as I said, there is clear evidence that this lack of HGV drivers is a problem many years in the making, and not helped by the recent problems at DVLA, and the pingdemic has also been a large factor. But while employers could source cheap labour from an ever-expanding pool, they cared not one jot about their drivers' pay and conditions, and they still don't. They had the opportunity to address those issues, but instead decided to weaponise a growing problem, conflate it into a crisis and force the government to U-turn on importing drivers, in the face of a second festive season of misery. They will not stop there. After this little victory, they will keep the pressure on to try and force the permanent use of an endless number of visas for foreign lorry drivers. Easter eggs will no doubt be the next shortage item. The government needs to keep the pedal to the metal on its plans for more driver training and more testing, and make it clear to our corporate bigwigs that pay and conditions are the way ahead, as there'll be no more bowing to blackmail. And that for me would be true capitalism in action. And now a quick question for the Green Lobby. How's that push to net zero going? But before I get into that, I just want to say a massive thank you to all my Super Thanks, Patreon and PayPal supporters, as well as those that do buy a mug with my mug on it, links in the descriptions box below, and I usually put up 2 videos every day. Now, China is building coal-fired power stations with abandon, while the UK Green Lobby is screeching that the UK must get to net zero by a week last Thursday, or the entire planet will be consumed by fire. And what have we got to show for it? Exploding energy prices and the real prospect of blackouts, unless the sun comes out in spades and the wind blows nice and consistently for at least the next 6 months. And it doesn't matter how many million wind turbines you have, or if the entire country is covered in solar panels, if the wind ain't blowing and the sun ain't shining. Then try and get your battery-driven car charged. The UK has advanced down the route of stripping out its fossil fuel energy base and reducing gas reserve storage down from weeks and months to a mere few days, while building a green energy infrastructure that can only operate in benign weather conditions. All the while failing to properly invest in the one true source of continuous energy, nuclear. We've ended up with an ageing fleet of nuclear reactors that will probably now be well retired before any replacements come online. It takes many years to commission these things. And right now, small gas suppliers are going bust. But this is also not a suddenly occurring problem. It turns out that it's been possible to set up an energy supply business from your back bedroom for years. And lots of people did just that, with many just seeing the potential pound signs and not understanding the true ramifications of doing so. And these firms have been going bust with a monotonous regularity, and this recent spike in gas prices, with no way of passing the costs on to the consumer because of the price caps, means the decks could end up being cleared of just about all of the operators but the biggest ones. And all we've ended up with is a country littered with turbines and solar panels, with diminishing supplies of energy and zero energy security, all leading to our food supply chains being hit because of a lack of CO2 due to rising gas prices. So I ask again, how is that drive to net zero for the UK going? But it's not as if Boris is much help either. It's obvious he and his cabinet have also bought into the whole wind and sun thing. Putin must be laughing his socks off. Now the Greens will just say the answer is to go more green and insulate homes more. Trouble is, yes, insulation keeps heat in, but you have to generate that heat somehow in the first place. How can you do that reliably with just wind and solar? And another question is, how do you get heat out of a house designed specifically to keep heat in on a hot, still summer's day? Oh yes, electric fans and air conditioning that all use, yes, energy. And from what I've read, these heat pumps ain't up to much either. The government is looking at a new US Westinghouse reactor in Anglesey, a start. But is this beginnings of a pivot to nuclear? Too little, too late. So what's your opinion on HGV drivers and net zero? Please like and comment below.